Drivers, start your engine. You are now listening to the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. and I'm welcoming you to take another lap of the extra mile for today, April the 30th, 2020. And ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in 2 whole months, we are getting close to going racing once again. The COVID red flag is almost over partially, as NASCAR has announced when they will go back racing. We're going to get into that. We also have veteran spotter Robbie Fast joining us at 8:15 to talk about racing from the perspective of one of the most trusted ears in the drivers radio, that is their spotter. So let's get started here on the Extra Mile, and this will be the point where usually I'd welcome in my co-hosts, but tonight, there are no co-hosts. I'm rolling solo this evening, really for the first time since I think the show started, because at the beginning, it was just myself on here, and then it went to myself and Michael, and eventually we picked up Lita and Caitlin. It was the four of us for a while, and then it flip-flopped between the three and the four of us. Then for last year or so, it's been the two of us with Caitlin. Michael has been back during portions of the COVID red flag. But there's no Michael tonight. Caitlin is enjoying her birthday. Happy birthday, co-host. I know she is enjoying herself. She just got my voice tonight. So it'll just be me rolling the show by myself. So let's get into it. Of course, we will start with the news segment, and the most important news of all, NASCAR is on its way back, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. For the first time since Phoenix, NASCAR has races coming up, and it is going to be coming up here soon. In just a couple of weeks, they will be back to racing at the track Too Tough to Tame. That's Darlington Raceway, for those not in the know. They're going to have 4 races in 10 days for the Cup Series, starting Sunday, May 17th with a 400-miler. That'll start at 3:30 on Fox. They'll then run Wednesday, May 20th, a 500-kilometer / 300-mile race on FS1 at 7:30 p.m. Then they will go to race that Sunday at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Coke 600. That'll be at 6 p.m. on Fox. And they will round out that 4-race stretch Wednesday, May 27th at Charlotte with another 500-kilometer or 300-mile event at 8 p.m. on FS1. These tracks were chosen due to their proximity to the Charlotte area, which means they will cut down on a lot of travel while most of the country is still shut down due to various lockdown measures that are going on at the moment. There have been no announcements of tracks past then, but we know Texas Motor Speedway and Homestead Miami are in position to where they can host races soon. With Georgia opening up, we can see the Atlanta Motor Speedway also hosting races. After that, we really don't know what's going to happen, as a lot of states are still closed down. Hopefully, by the time we get to June, curves will be flattening and more states will be able to open, and we can have more races and get to a more normal schedule. But it's going to look different when we go back to racing. There's not going to be any practice. There's only going to be qualifying for the Coke 600. For the other 3 events, it's going to be show up, drop the gate and race, which means these cars have to come set up, ready to go. And if there are major problems, I really don't know how you fix it, because you're not going to have a chance to go underneath that car and make spring adjustments or make major shock adjustments. You're going to have to go in there maybe with a conservative setup and just try to get through these races, to be honest. I know for Darlington, you can use these 2 races as test sessions for later on, as we still are going to have the Southern 500 on Labor Day weekend. NASCAR announced that these races at Darlington will not replace that race. But it's going to be hard on the crew chiefs, because there is not a lot you're going to be able to do with these cars. The only thing you're really going to be able to do is get them off the truck, make sure everything works, warm up the oils, get them through inspection, and then get them online so you can race. And the drivers, they're going to earn their pay, because these tracks are not going to be rubbered in. There's going to be a green surface. That means there's no rubber on it. This track isn't going to get well worked in until maybe the halfway point of stage 2. Somewhere in there. So these drivers are going to have to hold on to these cars, which should make for much better racing. And we know that Darlington can put on a great show. You know, one of the greatest finishes of all time happened there in 2003. And we're hoping it happens again, because, ladies and gentlemen, we need something. It has been a long time without sports. I know it's only been 2 months, and I know it is the most trivial thing while people are sitting out of work and some people have passed. I'm not trying to say that motorsports is more important. I'm just saying sports is a great uniter in this country. One of the few things that still unites us at this point, if we want to be real. So to get a chance to have some sort of sporting event on television that's not virtual, I mean, I've loved the virtual races, but, you know, they're not real. To have real live race cars back on the track, this is going to be great. I cannot wait to get the cars back, but I'm not 100% excited about this, and I'll tell you why. NASCAR said during their press conference today, and Turin, I see you in the chat saying, let's go racing. You're right, brother. Let us indeed go racing this Mary May. That was terrible, I know it, but I said it, and now you have to deal with it. I'm not sorry. Anyway, the one thing NASCAR did say is that while they will be doing temperature checks and health screenings, there will be no testing for coronavirus during the race weekends. I don't really agree with that. I understand why they didn't. They do not want to take tests from the stockpile, as we do not have many tests to go around right now, despite a certain individual saying that there are enough tests to go around for everybody, and everybody who wants one, they can get one. But we're not going to get into that. We are not a political show. We are a racing show, and we're going to stick with that tonight, because y'all don't want to hear me on that. So I really hope that this goes well, but the problem for NASCAR, the first person that tests positive, the outside of motorsports media is going to be falling all over themselves to club NASCAR, especially with how close they got to Trump with him coming to the Daytona 500, which, whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. It happened. But there's a lot of people that are going to make some comments about the sport and its fans. It's already begun, by the way. And if one person tests positive, we're not going to hear the end of it. So I hope this goes well. I want to see racing again, but I can wait if we can't do it without the proper testing. That's just me. But we will see what happens. The Xfinity Series and the Truck Series will also be running races during this stretch. Xfinity and Trucks will be running, or Xfinity will be running one race each. A Tuesday, May 19th event, a 200-miler event at Darlington. That'll be on FS1 at 8 o'clock. And then a Monday Memorial Day special at 7:30. That's going to be a 300-mile event. The Xfinity Series will run. That race will also be on FS1. And the Trucks will run one time during this stretch. That'll be Tuesday, May 26th at Charlotte. A 200-mile event that will start at 8 p.m. I don't know what that means for the bounty that we were talking about 2 months ago. I'm assuming that is off the table, but we will figure that out when we get closer. The way NASCAR is doing it is one day, one series. People get in, they get done with the race, they get out. There's not going to be a lot of media presence at the racetrack. I know Bob Pockris was on Twitter saying that there's probably just going to be a rotation of pool reporters. But for a lot of the media, we're going to be covering from home. So it's going to be a lot different how NASCAR is covered until we get a vaccine, which, ladies and gentlemen, a vaccine is coming soon. Just start praying, y'all, because there are two laboratories. There's Oxford, they're working with Pfizer, or there's a German lab working with Pfizer, and Oxford working with AstraZeneca. They are in human trials for a COVID-19 vaccine. The Oxford one may be a little bit further because that was being worked on for a different strain of coronavirus. When COVID-19 came up, they changed their work to using this virus for this particular strain. The results have been positive in tests before. We have started human trials. By mid-June, we should find out something. And our guest is actually on the line, so let me bring him in right now. We were going to take a commercial, but I guess we can just keep on rolling here on the Extra Mile. Let me welcome in tonight's guest. This man is one of the people, if you have a scanner at the racetrack, you have heard them talking to the drivers many a time. They are the eye in the sky for the drivers, keeping them safe and keeping them updated on what is going on around them. This individual has 25 years of experience spotting in IMSA, NASCAR, and the IndyCar series. Without a further ado, allow me to welcome to the Extra Mile a spotter for Team Ganassi Racing, Robbie Fast. Robbie, good evening. I do my best to try to make our guests feel as welcome as possible. It's just me tonight, unfortunately, with how things are going. Actually, let me make sure that everyone can hear you now. With everything that's going on right now with, Caitlin, it's her birthday today, so it's just you and I tonight. But we're going to have a lot of fun, Robbie. So,
okay.
How have things been? Are you staying safe out there?
Staying absolutely safe here with the family and everything, so it's going well. Doing as much iRacing as we possibly can, keep my mind busy, keep the kids busy with their schoolwork. I have a freshman in college and a seventh grader, so all the school is happening here at home. So definitely the daytimes are busy, and so are the evenings with, a lot of iRacing going on.
And we're going to talk about that iRacing in just a minute, because the IndyCar teams, if you guys didn't know, they went ham when it went to getting in on this iRacing thing. They went all in on the work they've done. We're going to talk about that. Robbie, we know you do work for the IndyCar. You guys were just getting ready to start your season when this started at St. Petersburg. Were you on the ground at St. Pete, and when did you guys hear that there was not going to be a race that weekend?
So we were already there. I'm one of the truck drivers, so I also drive one of the haulers that takes Scott Dixon's car to the racetracks. Been driving truck just as many years I've been on the roof now spotting for over 15 years and been working in IndyCar open wheel racing for 25 plus. The IMSA and then NASCAR stuff kind of comes in, in between. We'll probably talk a little bit about more of that later. But going back to St. Petersburg, we were definitely already there. We arrived on a Tuesday, got everything set up. We actually set up a tent, beside the trailer. We have 5 trucks parked side by side to haul 3 Team Indy cars. We take each driver of our 3 cars, have a primary and a backup. We have 3 of those trucks. We have a support trailer, and then we have an engineering trailer. So just imagine 5 of those big haulers parked side by side and in a large tent that is probably a good 60 by almost 40 that we work under, in that temporary circuit at St. Petersburg. So we were already set up by, Wednesday, then had pit lane set up on our normal setup day on Thursday. So we were completely ready to go, by Thursday, but then everything turned and changed come Friday. So once we got that news, we had to make arrangements. It was originally planned as just to do the race with no fans. And then that got, potentially then got canceled altogether or postponed because we might be going back there later this year.
Mm-hmm. And I think that would be helpful for everyone because that race at St. Petersburg the last couple of years has been an incredible event. It's really become part of the fabric of IndyCar the last 10 years. What are some of the – because, it's a street circuit, so you don't have the best views of other tracks. What is the spotter set up for a track like St. Petersburg?
The unique thing about this race is that I actually buy a ticket in this grandstand in turn 1. I'm in there with the fans, so I buy the same ticket as the fans do. Myself and the other 2 spotters for the Team Ganassi Racing over the past few years have been sitting in the grandstands, because we have the best view to look up the front straightaway. So I'm looking up, so I can see the very last corner of the track. And then all the way down the front straightaway, I can see the flag stand. I can see all of pit lane, and then into turn 1 and part of turn 2. So that's the unique thing about the temporary circuits like St. Petersburg, Long Beach, and Detroit, and a few in Toronto that are street circuits like that. I have a very limited space, and then even on most road courses, I had just have a very limited space sections of the track I can see. So what I'm helping Scott with there is the starts and restarts, the pit out, because I see all of that when you have to blend back in, during the race conditions and things like that. So that's the very unique thing about the spotters area in St. Petersburg. But it's the same thing for a number of races, Mid-Ohio, Portland, and I'm buying seats in the stands, and I'm right up in there with the fans. So it gives, the fans that I'm sitting around a unique situation. I get a lot of questions, which is fine. I'm want to be helpful and things like that. I do garage tours for our company, for our race team, to our sponsors and, all of our colleagues and things like that over the weekend. So, I get a lot of questions from fans and stuff. So once you're up there wearing the team gear and, the hat and binoculars and the radios, they kind of understand what you're doing. And then, that's the best area and the best view we can get. So that's how we do it.
So you must turn a lot of heads in the grandstands. You guys are walking up there, getting settled. Because I went to the Global Rallycross event in D.C. forever and a day ago, and they actually had the spotters come sit in our section on the Sunday, and that was wild seeing them there, and they're doing their thing. What is the fans' reaction like when they see you guys coming there and they see you talking to the drivers the whole time? 'Cause they've got to be in awe.
We're up there every day. So over the years, there's a number of fans that buy the same ticket packages, same seats over the years. So we've become friends, with a number of those fans and stuff. So because we see them year after year. So it becomes, more of a norm to them. There's just a handful of new people each year. But then, for those same groups of people that we see, they're very welcoming. They're very excited. They understand what we're doing. We try not to stand up in their way. And, we know that they purchased their ticket as well. It's not like I'm getting a free ticket. We purchase these tickets just like they do, in these situations. So it's, it gives them a different chance. And, and when the cars are stopped or during practice and stuff like that, because we're up there every day, whether it's, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday race, we're up there every time we're on track. So, it gives the fans a little bit more a chance to come, and talk to us and things like that, which we welcome that. We understand, but then they actually know them when we're busy and things like that. But, it's pretty fun to see the new family. I really like the younger generations and younger kids coming up and, kind of get excited about, what we're doing, and their father or, parents or somebody might explain to them, hey, he's a spotter. He's talking to the driver and stuff like that. So then they turn around during the race, you see them a lot and turn around looking at you and stuff like that. So it's a good time. So I enjoy that part of it as well.
That's adorable. And if you guys got a question for Robbie Fast, make sure to leave it in the chat. Sorry, I'm talking like there's more than one of us on here, but I will read those questions during the week or during the interview. I'm trying to get used to it doing this myself because I haven't done this solo in years at this point. But so you guys have gone virtual now with the IndyCar racing, like most of motorsports right now. But it feels like IndyCar has done more than most. Like, you guys have the strategists talking to the drivers and you, the spotters. Yeah. When did that come together? And how easy has that been to, just meld everybody into iRacing and just run it like a normal event?
It seems it's definitely downscaled, but then you're very correct about how we have a strategist or, somebody that's looking into the fuel. So we have an assistant to our engineer, basically looking at our fuel mileages and looking at all the data. We're collecting data from this iRacing, no different than we collecting data from whether it was a real race. Take St. Pete, for instance, that we were just talking about. All the times that we've been on track in practice and things like that, we're collecting the data. We're seeing what fuel mileage is, what the tires are doing, and things like that. So there's so much information, just no different on iRacing as there is in real racing. So there's obviously a ton of collections of data that you need to look at and go through and see what need to change your strategies during the race, and when you need to fuel, and how far can you go, and what's the best way to do this, and when to stop, how many laps is it? So the race distance is not as long. So that's the other part where we really have to look to find out, this race coming up this weekend at Indianapolis Motor Speedway on iRacing is only 70 laps long. How far can we go? In normal, we're in the 20s. We're in the mid-20s on real life racing as far as the stint with tires and fuel. Can we go farther than that? And is to change up the strategy to see what things happen. But in a lot of these cases, yellow flags really determine, and really change all your strategies. But the more data and collection you have, that's how much more it changes, the outcome of your event or your race and stuff. And so you just kind of do more than what the other guy's doing. Penske's doing the same thing. There are other teams out here with the same amount of people, per driver, as what we're doing. So it's exciting. It's fun. It's just as competitive, as if we were going to be actually going there. But then, here I am in the basement of my home on a 55-inch screen TV spotting for Scott. So that's the huge difference.
I think a 55-inch TV would be the best way to spot a race if I could. That sounds cool, man.
So there's just so many different things that you can see and collect and stuff like that. This view, Indianapolis, we use two different spotters. We're in IndyCar race for the 500. You have one in turn 3 and I'm in turn 1. So we're sharing the track. He sees this part from turn 2 to turn 4. I pick up from turn 4 to turn 2, and that's, we split that race. But now this weekend, coming up for this race, this Fry racing, I'm in like a helicopter view of Scott and spotting the race that way. So I see a lot. I see, the majority of the track all at one shot and stuff like that. So you just got to keep Scott, weaving through traffic and keep him clean. So that's the difference of my job, for this. But then there's just as much as we were talking about as what the engineers are doing as far as, collecting the data and seeing what's the best to make your car as competitive as if it was, the real thing. So that's what's pretty awesome.
So it sounds like with iRacing that they've got it to a point now where it's as close to the real thing as you can get, with the data collection and now the ability to bring in your own crew chief and spotter. They've really worked. It feels like they've really worked on the service the last few years to get it to where they wanted it with their mission statement, which was to really make it more than just a game, but to make it like the ultimate simulator, to where the teams are getting on there and starting to use it and use it as an ability to plan things. And what it feels like in the last couple of weeks, it's been proven that way, because Penske's been doing. They were doing team meetings midweek, before the race to prepare for, I think it was either Michigan or Motegi. I'm assuming you guys did the same thing, but it really feels like iRacing has really done a good job of keeping you guys in race mode, even though we're not actually racing.
No, that's very true. We have the same team meetings you're speaking of as what Penske does. We have, we probably had about 15 people that are involved all together in the iRacing between our three cars at the moment. So, we have a meeting midweek, and then tomorrow we have a practice race. I think it's only half distance, just with the TV network, because the TV network is going to have all the streaming from, the other drivers and then the commentators and things like that. So just to make sure that they're all in sync, and then to find out how everybody that, each driver that may have a stream that is being broadcasted to, the TV network, that it's all, everything's coercive and everything else. So that's the situation for that. But I don't think we've had a midweek meeting that was that in depth. It was just to get everybody in sync of collecting when we needed to start collecting the data for the cars. And that's when probably our biggest week was, as far as on track, just trying different things just to making sure that we know what's happening. I think our biggest thing is, with the great job that iRacing is doing, is that the damage to the car, if the car was to hit something or something was to hit you, the damage of what it does. And then that's just how do you determine that, and how extreme is it, and, how realistic is it? And so that's where the hardest part is to where, wow, if I hit something that hard, there's no way I'd be able to continue. Meanwhile, you're still driving down the track, at 200 miles an hour. So that's where we really kind of had to really help our, figure out what's the right way to do things. And then you get a full reset. So you don't get that in real racing. If you go in and make contact, turn one, lap one with somebody, and you ding a suspension, pretty much an IndyCar, you're going to be down a handful of laps before anything's really happen. You pull in there now and hit the button reset, and you get a fresh car to go again. So that's just the real big difference of that, and how much time it takes for pit stops, and how much time you lose in pit lane altogether if you come in under green flags. And just all that information really changes the outcome of your race, and so that's how important all that is still.
Pretty sure Chip Ganassi would love that y'all could just pull the car in after it got destroyed, hit a button, and it was good as new, though.
I laughed at that. The first race, where I'm trying to think where we were, was Barber. I think it was either the first or second race. And I said, now we're going to load up the truck. I had the truck loaded in 8 seconds, and I hit the reset button, and rather than an 8-hour drive home, I was home in 30 seconds. It was awesome. So, if real life truck driving, if it really happened that way too, that'd be pretty awesome. But, I've had my mileage over the road, crossing the country back and forth and stuff, and heading back to the West Coast to the Long Beach, and, from all over the country to Watkins Glen, which I hope in the future we get back to going there too. So, it's to see what we're doing as far as, right now, keeping entertainment to folks that are, stuck in their homes and, unable to get to work and stuff like that. It's just a thing for us. We're not able to go to our shop and things like that. So we're trying to keep everybody, busy doing things and stuff. And thankfully, we're still doing as much, work as we can as far as our engineering group is doing a lot of these projects at their home, which is working out pretty good right now too.
So we got a question in the chat. This is from Taryn Rodriguez. I'm going to read this. How difficult is it to be a spotter when it comes to racing, and what advice do you give to young and up-and-coming spotters?
Oh, great question. I like, to answer this, it's to get involved in something. I don't know. I just started, because I was over the wall. I was a crew guy, so I was a fueler, an air jack guy, and all that kind of stuff as far as the IndyCar pit stops. So when we started doing a lot of serious oval racing and spotters became more and more into it, I started listening to, as you brought up early on in the introduction, as the scanner. So I started listening to scanners from NASCAR teams and all different communications from all different spotters to different drivers, just picking up different key things of what is the information they want. Every driver I've worked for has never wanted the exact same information. I will do a session with them, and I'll go back down after that and meet with them and say, what do you like? What do you not like? They'll either go with that, I like it, or I don't need to hear this, or I don't need to hear that. So it's a lot of information that, to gather, and it's just a lot of staying focused of what's going on out in front of your car. Iowa Speedway, 7/8 mile oval, high banked. It's a small, tiny little salad bowl. We're doing 185 miles an hour around that place. We're doing it in, 15 seconds or something like that. So I am out in front of Scott way ahead of him. So just things like that I just need to keep him, clean and away from, bad situations. And so I'm just obviously what's going on behind him, but then I need to look way out in front of him as well, even though he can see it. But, at that speed, you're doing almost a football field distance in a second. So, something that's going to happen, half a lap ahead of him, he's going to be sitting on top of it before you know it. So that's probably one of the biggest things is I just listen to scanners, other drivers, other series, because it's all that information that I just started listening to and, gave me great ideas. And that's how I just kind of ran with it.
And you've done spotting for the IndyCar side. You've also had some IMSA and NASCAR work spotting. What's the difference between doing those three series? Because those are three completely different cars, three completely different closure rates, especially with now WeatherTech sports car racing with the different classes. What is the difference between all the three when you're up there in the spotter stand?
Well, let's go to Texas. Let's put us in Texas because what's going to happen there, and I hope this June we will have the IndyCar race, and then on the Friday night before the Saturday night race will be the NASCAR Truck Series. So, just before I've been with a number of different drivers in the Truck Series. As Brett Moffitt won the championship. I've worked with Jeb Burton. I've worked with Ryan Truex, and a number of different drivers. So the whole thing. You kind of, like I said, go do those sessions and stuff. And it's the same thing I'm saying to Ryan or Brett Moffitt or whoever's in the truck at the time, what I would be doing for Scott. But then it slowed down quite a bit. It's not to 220 miles an hour as what the IndyCar is doing at that 1.5 mile track. It's actually, 160, 170. So I don't need to talk as fast. I don't need to, I'm out ahead of him just as no different than I was with Scott because it's the same thing for those trucks. As would it be for the IndyCar, you're covering the ground just as fast. And so the more information he collects and understands from me, that's how the situation is, what I need to kind of give him. So there's that. Now let's go over to IMSA, as you asked, because I just did the 24 Hours of Daytona earlier in January this year. We did the entire race before all this got started. So, I share the system with a different spotter. There's two of us that share the whole entire race of the 24 hours. We do 4-hour shifts and just keep rotating. So up there on top of the spotter stand at Daytona, you can see the entire track, no different than you can see the oval. So there's that, but then obviously the road course is on the inside. So this year I worked for a Daytona prototype car, which was definitely one of the higher, faster class cars. Let's back up to where the previous 5 years I was working for Joey Hand, Dirk Mueller, and Sebastian Bourdais in the Ford GT in the GTLM class. Now that's the overtaking part to where you have that faster Daytona prototype car, that has sections of 180 miles an hour, and our top speeds are maybe 160 in the GTLM. So the closing rates and things like that, that's where you have to be aware all the time. And now add that rather than a 2-hour sprint race at Texas, you're doing a 4-hour endurance race that you need to keep the car clean. You need to, make sure the driver's getting as much, information from the spotter of what's going on, who's coming, and all that kind of stuff. So when you're in the faster series, you're actually passing the cars, but when you're in the GTLM slower series, you're being overtaken, a number of times, could be possibly each lap. So that's where it definitely gets a lot more busy.
Definitely has to be busy because those LMP they're now the Daytona Prototype Internationals and the LMP2s for that matter.
Right.
The closing rate is quick. They are on you by the time they get to the corner. And I know it makes it hard for you guys because you really have to watch that car because if your driver tries to turn in and that car, that LMP thinks he's clear and tries to shoot up the inside, we've seen it at Le Mans, for example. That tends to not end well. So I really commend the spotters of the GT cars during that Rolex 24 because there's a lot that's going on with passing and being passed during that race.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the more fun class to watch. When it was, the GTLMs, or the Porsches, the BMWs, and the Ferrari, and the Ford GTs and the Corvettes, I mean, what a cool class. I mean, it's the factory guys that are just getting out there and, just you still have to, it's an endurance race that turns out to be a sprint race. It's amazing how, what pace they have to keep up. But as we were saying with the DPI cars, you just have to, keep an, those GTs actually have a rear view camera. So it was one thing, well, what does a spotter need to be? Well, there's more than just going on and what's going on the video camera, because you want the driver to look forward, stay focused on forward and what's going on rather than, checking out what this 9-inch video screen is, behind the car. So that's where, my job comes in and hopefully he can take his focus off and not have to worry about what's coming around him. And I can just keep him, focused forward, and I'll let the car let when he's outside, inside, 4 or 5 car lengths back and things like that, and just keep it simple for him. And it's talking to him just like I'm talking to you now. Try not to get overexcited. Try not to get, not the voice raise. If I do start talking like an auctioneer at 100 miles an hour, then obviously something's happening, and I'll need you to back it down a bit and, keep yourself from running into something or a piece of debris and things like that, because that's the other thing you're always looking for. It's not just other cars. It could be a bumper that just fell off a car that, made contact and turn 3, and then all of a sudden it comes off in turn 6. And so it's things like that you really got to be on top of. And so it's awesome. I enjoy it. It's the 24-hour race stuff is pretty awesome. It's tiring. I don't go overseas for the Le Mans race or, this and that, but I do all the endurance races, the 12 hours of Sebring, the 6 hours up at Watkins Glen, and, those races that have just as much, I don't get to see as much of the track as you do at Daytona, of course, but then there's still a lot of this importance at being at those races as there would be, spotting the 24-hour.
So, Robbie, you've been in the open wheel world for a quarter of a century now. That's a lot of experience. You've seen a lot in your days. How did you get started working in open wheel racing?
I'm from the West Coast. I'm from the state of Oregon. So the Portland, Grand Prix started racing up there in 1984. I was just a high school student at the time, and once they started coming to Portland, I just got, I was a big race fan and just did, simple go-karting stuff when I was a kid, nothing, high dollar or over the top in the 80s. And, did a little bit of racing myself as far as, micro sprints and things like that on the West Coast. And then it got to a point to where it was, too expensive, and, racing back then to me was just as expensive. It's worse now, of course, but then it was easier to get paid to do it than actually pay to do it. So, got involved, and a friend of mine that I raced go-karts with, he went to college, got a degree, and became an engineer. And still, he said that we ran into each other one time in a go-kart race in Oregon. Would you like to come work for us? I was driving a truck for a construction company, and the rest is history. I've been a truck driver since 1995, pretty much in the open wheel, IndyCar series, and been doing that ever since.
1995. That was a while ago. I'm already feeling old enough, so I'm not going to make you feel old either about how old I was at that time. But what are a lot of the changes you've seen? So you went through the open wheel split, Civil War debacle, whatever you want to call it. What was that time like within the series? Because we know how it was with the fan base, but how was it in IndyCar or Champ Car, whichever one you were with?
I was in the Champ Car side, from basically, I did Indy Lights even before this. So I just wasn't in the truck driving from 1990. So we can go back to even 1990 for a few years on there before I went full time in 95 doing Indy Lights stuff. So the days of Paul Tracy and the days with him and, the Indy Lights cars and stuff. And that's kind of where it all went. So I was, right there in the full-time IndyCar and with a well-established, kart team at the time. And I kind of did a couple different teams before, that 90 season. And then all of a sudden, the split came, and then we were doing the US 500 up at Michigan rather the same weekend, or I think it was the same weekend as the 500 or something like that. So it was definitely different because I lived here in Indianapolis. The team I was working for was right here in Indianapolis. I'm 10 miles away from IMS. The shop I'm at now is less than 10 miles away from IMS on the north side of the northwest corner of Indianapolis, basically. So, everything was right here. So it was very hard to go into the series. When I grew up watching, the Unser, the junior Foyt, and Michael and Mario Andretti, as a kid, I say as a teenager and stuff, and all your heroes are racing in there, and all of a sudden they stayed in that kart side of the whole situation. So that's where, that split came, and I was like, man, I wanted to be in the 500 and stuff. So it wasn't until 2002 until I did my first pretty much Indy 500 with a full-time IndyCar team. When we were over in Germany, I was in 9/11. I was in Germany and England that weekend. That whole thing that happened with Alex Zanardi, and then the whole 9/11 thing was going on. I was in Germany in the middle of that the day before. I landed in Germany in Dresden, where we stayed. Coming back in from Berlin on 9/10, and then 9/11 happened. I was at the actual racetrack when this was going on. So after that, my son wasn't quite a year old, and then we kind of like, wow, this this IRL series that's going on right now, the Indy Racing League. I was like, they're do all ovals. I'd like to probably get out from doing pit stops and maybe get up on the roof and then do some spotting. And so the opportunity came. So it wasn't until 2002 until I did. The split came, and then all of a sudden, the merge and all that came. So there was definitely a lot of tension in between the two leagues and series that were going on at that time. So it was definitely a trying time, but then, ultimately I think we made the right decision. And once they all came together, everything just built and everything started to click again. So we went from just an all oval series from the Indy Racing League and started going back to road course and street courses. And, here we are.
Yeah, we're now in a good, what feels like IndyCar, Champ Car hybrid, which we should have been from the beginning. And I know when that first started, because I was, young, we'll keep it there. We won't put an age on that number. Or we won't put a number to that age, but you just see, okay, so there's kart and there's IndyCar, and like, oh, there's more IndyCar. That's great. And then you get older and finally realize, oh, that's what's going on. When I became a teenager, I'm like, oh, this isn't that fun at all then. But now they're back together, and we're all happy. And you mentioned the USA 500. Were you there for that debacle at the start of that race where they took out like half the field coming to green?
Yes. I was working for Parker Johnstone. We were in the Motorola Honda Renard and Firestone. I think it was still split between the Firestone and Goodyear in those days. So I don't remember where we started, but we did get caught up in that. And I remember they stopped the race. Well, let me pause here right now because you probably, or whether you have seen it or the people listening have seen, was the race that we just did a couple of weeks ago at Michigan in iRacing. Almost had the exact same start. And unfortunately, it took out the driver I'm working for, Scott Dixon, and our car wasn't able to even to get the quick repair to keep going. But back to 96, yes, I was there. I remember they had a big, long stoppage of the whole thing to where they allowed cars to go get their backup cars. We had, I think Detroit was after this or something. There was a street course so all of our backup cars were already prepared more for the street course race rather than they were for, a backup car for the oval. Because once you go into Sunday, you can start getting your backup car ready for whatever next weekend is and not have to worry about using that, because once the race starts, if something happens, you're done anyway. So they gave the teams and allowed them enough time to get the thing back restarted and all that kind of stuff. And I think our car lasted not quite till halfway because there was a fine crack in the gearbox, and then it started to leak all the oil out, and then the oil temperature and the gearbox temperature went up and it seized, and that was it. But I think we even went up as fast enough or as far enough to maybe even possibly get in the lead, because I remember Parker was always very quick up there at Michigan, in the years before this, in 94, 95, and, up into this time of 96.
Yeah. I know that we've got new leadership in the sport. If I don't know why he would, but if Roger, if you're listening, can we please go back to Michigan International Speedway,
Absolutely.
Please and thank you. I would love to get back there. One of the favorite tracks, I think, for everybody, to be honest, to have IndyCar up there. And that was a wild day in 2000 when that happened. It's this big. For those of you that are listening didn't know about the split, this is the big answer from kart to IndyCar about the 500, because there was this big to-do about what cars are going to be used at the Indy 500, and kart wanted to put on this event to kind of retaliate against the Indy 500, and then that happens with the major wreck, and just kind of throws that spanner in the works, unfortunately. But it was still a good race at the end. It's just no one really remembers that. Everybody remembers when you all piled up half the cars coming to the green.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And it was unfortunate and stuff. We definitely worked through it, and it was definitely one of those things that's definitely a picture in your memory for history as far as open wheel racing goes up there at Michigan. But I completely agree with you. And, thankfully that, Roger Penske, a former owner of the track and and for many a year up there in Michigan, hopefully has a big word to say about now being the man for IndyCar right now, to get us back going there, because what an awesome place. It's a close, easy drive for us people from here in Indiana to get up there to that race, and what an awesome event. And he built the same sister track out there at Fontana that's we've used up until the past handful of years ago and stuff. And but Michigan, wow, just some areas of it and things like that. What a cool place to be at.
Yep. And Roger, also take us back to Fontana, please take us back to Fontana.
Yeah.
I love that.
Let me tell you one thing about spotting, because the very last Fontana race that we had, unfortunately, didn't have too many viewers of it, which is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
That was the busiest race I've ever spotted in my life. I think we were doing 2, 3, 4 lead changes, per lap. If we weren't not even mid pack, we were probably doing 2 or 3 passing, of the same car. It was never a pack racing, because nobody settled down and just started logging laps, as we say, just to keep going. And it seemed like a sprint race, and it was the craziest race. I have never had to change a battery in the middle of a race before, because the batteries I use now can go for 4 or 5 hours. I must have had the thing keyed up the entire time. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was waiting for a yellow, because it does an audible beep in your ear when the battery starts to die. And I was just like sweating, waiting for a yellow to come out so I can actually change the battery and stuff. It was probably one of the most intense races I've ever, witnessed from the roof. Unbelievable race and stuff. But I completely agree with you. If it was a night race or something like that, wow, what an impressive place to be at with the cooler temperatures possibly there.
And it used to be a night race, so we got to get that. If we're going to go back there, I agree, we have to go back at night, because that race was during the day, that last one, so it was extremely hot. A lot of people didn't show up. I think the TV number may have been better, but it was just so depressing watching on TV that epic race y'all put on, and no one was really there. Hopefully that relationship isn't frayed. We can get back there and get this race going. So we got 2 questions here from Jonathan Grunke. Jonathan, instrumental in helping put this together this weekend. And I hope, Jonathan, everything's going well. I know he had some issues with his cat. I hope the cat's doing well. So he's got 2 questions. 1, what's been your biggest win as a spotter? And 2, do you think we will have a spotter get into one of the racing Hall of Fames, for example, the NASCAR Hall of Fame?
Wow, great question, Jonathan. Wow, spotters. Who over the years? I mean, NASCAR spotters and things like that. There's definitely a number of awesome ones over the years. But then you got to go back to the guys that started doing this, 20, 25 years ago. That when it really wasn't a big thing, but then it really evolved. I mean, the NASCAR spotters and stuff like right now, the involvement they have is definitely even more intensive, I think, than sometimes the IndyCar guys actually have. So there are a number of them. That would be a great thing for some of those, to be recognized like that. If not, mainly from the hall, but just something on the side or something like that would be what an honor that would really be, for those guys. And like I said, I'm friends with many of those guys, up in that ranks and up in that series as well. So that would be cool. Now, I have 3 cowboy hats hanging up here in my basement. Other than Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which I still have not won the Indianapolis 500, as even a crew member or a spotter, that's one of my biggest goals. I'm 51. I'll hopefully have still good eyesight for the next dozen years or so to hopefully it won't take that long to get one. And but I have 3 cowboy hats hanging up here on the wall, and they're from Texas Motor Speedway. And so I would say just that winner's circle is one of the coolest winter circle celebrations, as far as all of racing, with all the flames that he has, and then the 6-gun shooters and stuff like that for the driver. But 2 of them with Scott, and then 1 with Jeb Burton in the Truck Series. So that's the racetrack. If not racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I would love Texas Motor Speedway races at night are awesome. I mean, we used to go there twice a year when we were in the Indy Racing League. We'd be able to race there in June, and then we'd complete the end of the season for the championship later in September. But that's a number of years ago. But Texas Motor Speedway, the wins there, and just every race, I get so excited. When going through the tunnel there, I get the same chills, and the hair stands up on the back of your neck just like it does here every morning before the Indy 500 Memorial Weekend. I understand it's August now, but I'll still, every time you go through that tunnel, it's just the grounds you're entering. The racetrack is just unreal. It's very cool. I love it. Miss it right now. I wish we were going to be going there, in the next week and stuff, but great question. I appreciate it. And then, Texas Motor Speedway, those race wins are pretty cool.
We've seen a lot of great races at Texas. Hopefully when we get back in June, because I'm speaking that into existence, we will be racing in June with IndyCar. We're going to see another good one. And we had another question from Shannon Rowe before we start to wrap up here tonight. Her question was, if you got an opportunity to spot NASCAR on a more regular basis, would you go and do it in North Carolina?
I've had the opportunity over the years and stuff. It's been tough to pack up everything and then try to start all over in North Carolina. I know there's a number of spotters right now that fly in from their current hometown away from Charlotte area. But just back at the time, everybody was, taking the team plane, and you would join that plane and so on and so forth to keep the costs down. And so, so that was the difference. Currently, I think it'd be still too difficult to do unless I had something, that I knew I could fly from here and the team agreed with it or something. But, I've had great success here. This is my 12th season going in for Scott Dixon. 3 championships with him of his 5. And the 500, the Indy 500 right now is what's holding me. I don't know what it does. It's hard to explain that. I just can't, want to pack up everything and go, all right, let's go do this series and stuff. It'd keep me more busy for sure, because you could be, necessarily doing the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and, and the Cup Series all, in the same weekends and stuff like that. So it definitely keeps you, employed. But then, right now, the Indy 500 is one of those. I got to get that ring. I don't know other than how to explain it, but it's a good question. I've had the opportunity and the chances, and like I said, I'm able to do some NASCAR stuff even here at the Brickyard over the years with Juan Montoya and Larson, and the drivers that have worked with us, over the years here at Ganassi. I've been able to do those as well. So. It'd be tough, but it's never say never, right?
Right. So there are a lot of great spotters out there, and personally, I think Scott Dixon's got one of the best around. Robbie, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get out of here, though, during this whole COVID red flag, we've been asking people about a certain item just to keep the mood light and go out on a high note with everything that's going on with everyone, stuck in their houses because, massive worldwide pandemic. There was a certain item in the first weeks of this that kind of went missing and is now just coming back into stores. This is usually the time where I'd pass to Caitlin for this question. Unfortunately, she's not here, so I'll have to ask it. Do you or did you have enough toilet paper?
Yes. Did we find more? Did we go crazy on it? No. We have a Sam's Club membership, but I did not, go out and overload it. I don't think we had more than, I don't even think 70 rolls. I think 70 rolls would be an extreme number. So I think we're, probably a lot less than that. It was a big bundle, but it wasn't, 9 of them or something like that. But fortunately, yes, we've been very comfortable in not having to worry about that. But it still boggles me that the store shelves are empty in those section still.
It has been 6 weeks, and I count by how long we've been doing this. Toilet paper is still not bad. How much did y'all buy? Seriously, like
I don't get it. We have a family of 4 here, so we have enough, and I'm pretty sure we have enough until we get back to normal.
Yeah, and to all y'all out there that bought the toilet paper up, why did y'all do that? It wasn't that much. At Robbie Fast on Twitter, if you want to follow this gentleman when racing gets back going. Robbie, this was an incredible night. We definitely got to have you back once the season gets going. Get you back, hopefully, if you aren't too busy, around Indy 500 weekend, because I know you love that race, and we got a good friend of mine that I also get to do some things on the radio with that would love to pick your brain about the Indianapolis 500. So we've definitely got to have you back.
Absolutely. Come find me in the weekends and stuff like that. So looking forward to it.
All right, Robbie, thank you so much. Have a good evening. We will catch you next time, man. Have a good one.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was Robbie Fast, ladies and gentlemen, and that is going to call time on this episode of The Extra Mile. Thank you for everyone that sent questions in, and I'm going to read this from Turin because I kind of agree with it. Stop hoarding all the dang toilet paper. And apparently stop hoarding the vanilla grain crackers. I don't even know what those are, but I'll have to figure that out sometime later. So that'll about do it for this episode of The Extra Mile. If you want to get in touch with me during the week, you can follow me at DK Jr. You can also follow The Extra Mile at IE Motorsport, at The Extra Mile IE1. Also, make sure to follow the IE Sports Radio social medias on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check out iesportsradio.com as well to keep updated on everything that's going on. And of course, you can listen to any show, The Extra Mile, that you have missed on Facebook, Instagram, or not Facebook, sorry, I'm going through the wrong spiel right there. What I'm going to say is you can listen to every show on the Spreaker show reel, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and other places where podcasts can be heard. We're working on a guest for next week. Keep it locked to Twitter to find out who that is. I will give you a hint. He is a native from D.C., and he is working his way through the Drive for Diversity program, but we will confirm that with you guys next week. Racing is coming back, y'all. But the interviews are going to continue here on The Extra Mile even through. Thank you all for listening. You have been you. I have been Darryl. And we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.